Hey everybody, welcome to EIS Live. Just for those of you who may not know what EIS is, Emotional Intelligence Solutions, we just want to let you know that we're a counseling and a coaching and mentoring entity that really helps people discover freedom in their lives to become all that they're intended to be and discover their why and their purpose. It's kind of a mission statement that we have. And we do that by employing a process that affords a person to go far enough into their past and uncover broken, unhealed, and undealt with areas in their lives to discover healthy new patterns as individuals, in relationships, in your marriages and businesses, employment settings, and really help deal with the whole person and not just fix some certain areas that might seem to be broken in our lives. We also extend this process into leadership development, as we believe leadership starts from within in the home and is translated outwardly from there. So it's not just being a great problem solver or decision maker, but really developing a heart to lead and a heart to raise others up so that they can become the people that they're called to be. Also developing character, integrity, accountability, and other hallmarks of genuine leadership. So we offer a comprehensive approach to personal growth and maturity from the individual to CEOs in business, like you heard from last week, and everyone in between. In addition, throughout the broadcast today, you'll see some banners on the screen like you see right there in terms of asking questions later on, but you'll also see ways to connect with us at EIS. As you listen to the broadcast, you might say to yourself, well, Self, I think I'd like to partake of some of this and check in with us, so you'll be able to do that. And then finally, the live shows are here to feature testimonies of people's lives that have been transformed in many different ways and are still on the journey, of course, and other professionals in the field of helping in similar ways as EIS does, our own staff counselors, authors of books that we believe are important resources that support the work that we do here at EIS. And again, we welcome you to ask some questions. You can go ahead and post them in the comments. And my super duper czar of social media content, Vanessa, who's going to be coming on right now.
Hi,
hey, she's going to be looking at those comments and making sure that those questions get answered, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm so excited.
So excited.
It's going to be a good one. They're always a good one, but this one I'm very excited about.
Yeah, well, I'm super excited too. And this is the part where we pretend we haven't been talking like 5 minutes ago or anything. So, but yeah, I'm super excited with our guest today. I've known Mike for several years now. And I'll tell you, as far as pastors go, he's one of my favorite pastors that I've ever had the pleasure to have known. In fact, I kind of refer to him as my pastor. I love him that much. Why? Because he's definitely not very religious. He's very genuine, authentic, unpretentious. Like I said, I'm religious. And if you read the Daily Journal from last night and this morning about the difference of being an influencer and being a person of great influence, Mike is an outstanding example of not being an influencer, but one of those people who really is a genuine man of great influence in many, many different ways. The evidence of that is that he reaches over 4 million people a month with his teachings on leadership and biblical principles, and is the founder and lead pastor of V1 Church, and has achieved the fastest growing church in America for 3 years consecutively. So I want to introduce Mike, and we're going to be talking about, how in his life, how did he wind up, going down this pathway in his own life. We all come from somewhere, right? He's going to be sharing that. And then we're going to get into that person of great influence discussion. So welcome, Mike SIgnorelli.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Awesome, man.
What an intro, by the way. That was the intro of all intros I think I will ever receive. I want you to do my funeral. I've decided it right now.
Sign me up. I'll be there.
Yeah.
That means I'm going to be a lot older than you. You're going to have to be going a while. I could be 110 by then, or 120 even. Who knows?
Yeah. Come on now.
Whatever.
Essa.
So, yeah, Mike, thanks for being here. I know you're busy as all get out and running all over the place all the time. And hopefully you're feeling, I didn't even ask you this earlier. I hope you're feeling better. I know you had pneumonia there for a while.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot better.
Good.
Thank
Well,
God.
you got to take care of yourself and rest every now and then,
Yeah.
like once every 2 weeks, maybe.
Yeah. Once every 6 months.
But anyway, yeah, let's talk a little bit about your background. And, because we chatted a little bit earlier, like we kind of came from similar backgrounds in certain ways. And how, that background kind of led you forward in your life. And then ultimately, starting up V1 Church. And then we'll talk about how we got together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for everybody listening right now, we all have a perception of people. And I remember growing up and looking at certain people. And what's funny is I remember what I used to think being rich was, and I look back now and I'm like, really, they just had a middle class life with two parents. But to me, that was crazy. And I was actually raised in a trailer park in South Chicago, Northwest Indiana. I was raised by a single mother with 5 kids. And, she had she got married multiple times. So I had multiple abusive stepdads, and it was crazy. And that was how I was raised in that environment. And it's funny because people meet me now on the other side of all of that. And through this massive process I've been putting myself through over the years. And it's so funny because they make the assumptions about me that I used to make about other people. They're like, oh, you don't know what it's like to go through rejection. You don't know what it's like to go through pain. You don't know what it's like to be poor. I'm like, wait a second, homie. Let me tell you my story. So for me, I mean, really, to be raised in a trailer park where trailer park is it's extended camping, so I mean, that was really humble. You talk about humble beginnings. And so I think for me, it's always been this understanding that you can change your life, that your choices can determine your destiny. And I believe that I went on that journey because, especially as a person of faith, I don't believe in accidents. I believe in divine appointments. I believe in these serendipitous moments where different things happen where like that could not be an accident. I just told the story last Sunday, but when I was 15 years old, I'm extremely introverted. I'm still introverted, by the way. That never changed. Nobody believes me anymore because I speak in front of thousands of people and I do what I do, but almost it borders like social anxiety, and people, I sweat a lot. I mean, it's like, I've never not been nervous anytime I've ever preached or done anything like even what I'm doing right now, but I just do it anyways. And when I was 15 years old, a woman told me, I had a dream that you preached at my church and all the young people, accepted Christ. And it was this big thing. And so I remember, for me being an extreme introvert, her dream scared me. But it was, but again, it was one of those divine appointments. It was like something was calling me. And so I've met so many people over the years that have experienced those moments where you're like, this was a defining line. Like, this is the before and after. So for me at 15 years old, that woman's dream, who I didn't even know, I never met her in my life, was this, in my opinion, a supernatural, crazy event. And in a lot of ways, I owe her so much because I couldn't tell you her address or her phone number or even her name, but I've gone back to her dream for me many, many times. Every time I preach, I think about her, actually. So, maybe this broadcast is somebody's defining moment, or maybe it's a confirmation where you're like, wow, you know what? Like, what's happening in my life is not random. And I'm being guided. I just have to pay attention to the signs. When you're driving on the highway, the signs will guide you if you read them, not your phone. So for me, it's like there have been all these signs, from single mom on welfare, multiple abusive stepdads, extreme poverty. But then there's these moments I can look back where I was like, someone or something was intervening. And I, because I should be dead, I shouldn't have got this far. I just got back from a trip with John Maxwell, and I was sitting at this table with John Maxwell, with Chris Hodges, who pioneered the way that most modern churches do church. And even though we hit fastest growing church in America 3 years in a row, year over year, you sit at that table and you're like, should I even really be here? And for me, it's like, you still deal with those. I think my story, if I could just share this with anyone, the journey I've been on is just, I do it afraid. I do it even when I don't feel confident. I just I think I'm just willing to make myself do the things that scare most people. And I've just seen massive results so that's kind of like my life in a nutshell.
Wow. It just strikes me every time as like, I'm just as introverted as you. And it's the same thing for me. Is like every time I do this, I'm always nervous. Every time I have to go speak, I'm always nervous, but I do it anyway. And, we do it because that's what we're called to do. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And I really love what you said, is like, maybe that's my dog barking in the background. He's trying to get in on the action here, I guess.
He's amening me.
But, it's true. It's like anybody who's out there watching and watches, a repeat of this somewhere down the road, because God uses repeats too,
Yeah.
It's like that, that challenge that could come, or just that one thing that's spoken that somebody hears, that just says, well, maybe that could be me. Why not? Why can't it be me? I mean, we both came from the same type of a background. I was a drunk, a drug addict, crazy maniac, alcoholic, ran all over the country like an idiot until I was 30, and didn't give my life to the Lord until I was about 33, 34, 35. My wife's here on the sidelines. I got to ask her. I don't remember everything. So.
You don't remember when we got married.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. So anyway, yeah. So yeah, here we are. We sit here as examples of that. Why not me? Why not you? Why not whoever's listening here today, to see what we have in store for the rest of your life?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing is you can see people make such a dramatic change in their life that they have to reintroduce themselves to people that used to know them. And that's my biggest suggestion is you can change your life so much that you have to reintroduce yourself to people. And for me, it's like, I've had that experience, and it really is one of those things that shows you that it's possible. It's possible. And each person is a living example of what's possible. And so for me, when I sat at that table in the Dominican Republic with John Maxwell and Chris Hodges and Joe Champion, whose dad used to be a really prolific NFL coach, and now he pastors one of the largest churches in America, I thought to myself, I'm sitting at this table on behalf of everyone else who's first generation, because there's probably people watching right now that are first generation entrepreneur, first generation ministry, first generation, and it's like, I'm going to be the first person that has a marriage that doesn't end in divorce. I don't know how, but I've made up my mind that Julie and I are going to be the first. I'm going to be first generation to step into ministry. I don't know how. I've never seen it before, but I just made up my mind. I started moving in that direction. And, I know not everybody watching this broadcast even knows or even believes in the Bible, but there's so many rich stories. And one of them is, Moses, who we all know parted the Red Sea. God used him, and this miraculous thing happened, and the Red Sea splits and the children of Israel walk by on dry ground. But the most fascinating part of the story is that Moses stuttered. So it's like these are the kinds of people that God uses to do great things, like people who stutter, people, murderers, and people that have fallen short. And so, like you said, eventually you ask yourself the question, if it's going to be someone, why not me? And I think for me, I just kept stepping into that space. I'm still stepping into that space. I have two daughters, Everly and Bella, and I've never seen for myself growing up an interaction between a dad and a child. Like I didn't live in a house like that. We had stepdads that really didn't care, and then they would leave. And so trying to be something you've never seen is very hard, but it's very rewarding. So I believe there's many people watching right now, and you are called to be something you've never seen. You're destined to be something you've never seen. And you can use that as an excuse. You could say, well, I've never seen it, so how can I accomplish it? But yeah, but that's your mantle, that's your calling, that's your destiny, that's your blessing. It's like, stop making it out like, oh man, I've never seen this before. How do I do this? And start celebrating the fact that you get to be the first. And for me, I think in my life, I clicked into that where I was like, you know what? my destiny is to be the first, and that's what I'm going to walk in.
Yeah, and it reminds me, not to despise the small beginnings, right? So, I mean, when I started out, I was as green as the grass outside, and there's lots of grass out here in California. It's very green, and starting off in ministry was insane. I mean, the only thing that I knew is I had my own business, and I took a corporate model into the ministry world, and it was nothing but one humbling experience after another. I mean, I was completely disqualified in so many different ways. And in fact, everything that I've walked out of today, my wife and myself together, the process itself, EIS, is a fruit of all of this, is a fruit of my failure. It's a fruit of my failure in life. It's a fruit of my failure in marriage. Everything is a fruit of failure. But what I did is I just learned how to, to be foolish enough to keep moving forward and believing, that God had a plan. And this may not look like it fits into that plan. Sometimes it seems distinctly opposite of that,
Yeah.
Like, if this was God, it wouldn't look like this, like, don't be too sure about that, because all of those failures need to be transformed. That's a part of your empowerment. The things that you're weakest in, he turns them into your strengths, right?
That's it. And
EIS just is totally born out of that. And, I think it's talk about divine appointments, the fact that EIS and V1 Church, you and I and the rest of the people involved, kind of connected, and, we walk kind of arm in arm with that, and that as a relationship, kind of covering both of those areas, the counseling leg of the thing and the mentoring and all that, and you on the discipleship, if you will, side of things, which are really all the same to me.
Yeah.
Different facets.
Yeah. Well, and what I've learned over the years is that if you head into the direction that you're destined to walk in, then people will just mysteriously show up to assist you. They'll mysteriously show up to guide you. You've heard that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And it's like, when you make up your mind, I'm moving in this direction, nothing's going to stop me. I know this is my destiny. I know this is my purpose. Then and only then does the provision show up. A lot of times people say, well, when I have enough money, then I'll do it. No, you do it, and then the money will show up. And it's funny because even people who smoke cigarettes understand that they always have enough money for cigarettes. They're never too broke to not smoke. People who drink alcohol, like you were an addict at one point in my life. I struggle with alcohol addiction. I'm telling you, Bill, I always had enough money for alcohol. I have no idea. But it was like, it's funny how we operate in a perverted faith. We operated in this distorted faith, like by faith, I'm going to have alcohol. By faith, I'm going to smoke. I mean, I never smoked, but it's like one of those things but we don't apply that same level of faith to our business. We don't apply that same level of faith to our relationships. So it's like, maybe I should preach a sermon like have faith like an alcoholic. That would be a good one, because it's like, once you made up your mind, like, I will drink today, you're going to find a way. And if people say, I will stay married, you're going to find a way to stay married. Right. I will become a multimillionaire with legacy for all the generations of my family. You will find a way. And it's like, whatever you make your mind up for. I came to New York and people said, you're not from New York. You're from a trailer park in Indiana. You don't understand New York. And I was like, I may not understand New York, but I understand leadership. And the principles of leadership, you cannot violate them. They are true in every culture, on every continent. Because I understand leadership, it will work. And I had made up my mind. I sold my house in Indiana because at that point I had a house. I closed the doors to my music venue because I had a music venue. I shut down all my other businesses because I've had different companies and things. And I went all in on New York to live in a 600 square foot apartment with a family of 4. And so when I hit fastest growing church in America, a John Maxwell company called Enjoy, they had to tell me I did it. I didn't even know I was being that successful because I never saw all the V1 church people in one room at one time. You know, we would do services at each location. We were spread out. We had people watching online, but they had to tell me that I was being successful because my goal wasn't to be successful. It was to love people, to serve them with my life, to change them, to put them through a process, to help teach them how to the marriage of their dreams, how to become more successful as parents to their children. I was just doing the work. And I was so engrossed in serving people that I feel like I can cry right now, even talking about it. When that John Maxwell company, Enjoy, it's like Enjoy Stewardship. That's what they're called. They do a deep dive of churches and their finances and their giving and their attendance and all that. When they came to me and said, not only did you hit fastest growing church in America, but out of 5,000 churches in our network, you broke every record we've ever had. Me and my team just started weeping because we were like, we didn't even know we did it because our conversations were not, how awesome are we? Our conversation was like, you know, how successful are we? Our conversation was, hey, man, I heard so-and-so relapsed. What can we do to save their life? Hey, I heard so-and-so's thinking about divorce, but we believe that they can stay together. How do we fight for their marriage? And we were so obsessed with people. We were so obsessed with taking them on their journey and helping them fulfill their destiny that someone else had to tell us we were successful. And so I think, you know, for me, and you know what it is, to your point, Bill, all I've tried to be for other people is what I never had for myself. It's literally that. Like what when I was on welfare and public assistance with my family growing up, when my stepdads kept leaving, what kind of pastor do I wish that I had? I got to be that guy. You know, to my daughters, I don't know how to be a good dad, but what do I wish I had growing up? That's what I'm going to be. To my wife, man, I don't know, man, it makes me want to cry right now, even trying to say it. I never seen a husband love a wife well, but if I can imagine how I wish somebody would have loved my mother, I need to love the mother of my children like that. And that's all it is. So sometimes you get a mentor, you get a demonic mentor where it's like they're so evil and everything they do is so wrong that the blessing that's hidden in that is all you got to do is be the opposite. And that's what, and so for me, it's like people are asking us, how do we figure this out? I'm like, love will always find a way every single time.
Yeah, in terms of leadership, I mean, that's what we say all the time. If you're not loving the people that you're leading, then you're just not doing it right, and you're not going to hit the mark. And it's like really heavy. What you said is like, you know, somebody had to tell you like, hey, you know what, you hit fastest growing church. You know, it's like because you didn't set out to do that. You just set out to love people, to raise people up, to become everybody or the person that they're created to be. And that's what EIS is all about, of course. Like I said, it was a great marriage for us to come together to do that. But nobody's looking for the numbers. Nobody's looking for the accolades. You know, in fact, I was prophesied over 20 years ago by a pastor that I didn't even know. And he said, your challenge is going to be not to accept the plaudits of men. You know, it was it. It was like the hugest thing that he ever said. I never forgot that. Like, why? Because your challenge is going to be to remain humble no matter what God takes you through, no matter what you get to achieve. And, you know, I've been down temptation road to try to be somebody else and be an influencer and all of these things, you know, and I do want to kind of segue ourselves into that, you know, talking about that, because again, what you're talking about, Mike, is you're demonstrating exactly what that daily journal was about. It's like so many people just want to be influencers as opposed to just being who they really are. And, you know, basically just trusting God is like, take me wherever you want me to go. I'll do whatever you want me to do, you know, and humbly just accept that assignment and move forward and kind of see what happens by faith. And he does crazy, awesome things. Yeah. You know, with people who are willing to surrender their lives and their own agendas, you know, to make something of themselves. And not dismissing like vision, like you mentioned earlier, like even being an alcoholic, like you said, if I'm an alcoholic and I want to drink, I'll find a way to drink, you know, If I want to make $1 million, I can find a way to do that. Whatever's in my heart that I'm going to follow, I can follow that and I can get there.
Yeah.
So before I go on, though, I want to ask Ness. Ness, you have anything you want to interject or questions about now?
I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. Please just keep going. There were so many bombs. People are blowing you up in the chat. I'm just keep going. That's my only request.
So you're my new favorite.
All right. So Mike, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's just talk about, I mean, we have been talking about it just because we're talking, but like this idea of, being an influencer, it's such a big deal for so many people. I think coming up, and one of the things I alluded to in the daily was a lot of the people that want to be influencers are much like us, very insecure, really, and not like we're just loaded down with these extroverted, outgoing gifts, that we're going to be able to just get out there and be influencers somehow, like go to influencer school or something. It's like, but becoming a person of great influence is really, to me, the key word in that equation is humility.
Yeah.
So let's build on that a little bit. And
yeah, absolutely. If you can hear the sound of my voice right now, you have some level of brokenness in your life. If you're alive, you're broken. I have not met one person who doesn't have some level of brokenness in their life. And so what happens is you think that there's a number of comments and likes and shares that can heal that brokenness. Like you think if enough people can shout me down and clap for me and tell me how amazing I am, there's a certain threshold, and everyone has a different number, like if 5 people tell me I'm beautiful, then I'm beautiful. If 15%, if 25 people tell me that I'm intelligent, I'm intelligent. And, it's the Wizard of Oz effect. Right. And I say that all the time because that movie, it's an old movie, but they get all the way to Oz and find out he's just this little guy behind a curtain. And then he's like, hey, the whole story of the Wizard of Oz is that the Cowardly Lion really was not a coward. Actually, he was afraid, but there's no way he would have made it to Oz if he was a coward. He wasn't a coward. He was just afraid, but he actually had courage because he did it anyways. He made it all. Or, the Scarecrow, it's like he thinks he's dumb. But if you pay attention to the movie, he's the one charting the course for everybody the whole time. So he just gets a scroll by Oz and says, here's your stupid scroll. You would have never made it this far if you weren't smart. So it's like we're always looking for validation. And we all have a threshold of how much validation do we need that, to heal our brokenness. But the truth is, validation on brokenness is gasoline on a flame. It only makes you more prideful, more arrogant. And pride and arrogance and narcissism comes in many different flavors. I tell people pride will have your back stiff as a board like this, or it'll have it bent at a 90-degree angle. Because sometimes when you're prideful, you walk into a room and you want everybody to see how jacked up you are, and you're actually acting like you don't want them to pay attention to you, but you're trying to draw more attention by slumping your shoulders over like this and acting all sad. So it's like pride is a funny thing because you can walk in like I'm the greatest thing ever, or you can walk in like I'm the worst thing ever, but both is pride because both is trying to get people's attention the wrong way. And so what I've learned about being an influencer, and I'm saying this in air quotes, is that my goal is not to be an influencer. So during this global pandemic, my wife said, Mike, when you meet with people one-on-one, when you talk to people in, large groups, you change people's lives. If you just grab your phone and start doing that on Facebook, you will help people during this pandemic. And I literally told my wife, I'm like holding a phone to your face and be like, hey guys, what's up? Pastor Mike here. I thought that was so corny, so cringy. I was like, that's like nerdy. Like I'm a preacher. Like I have a microphone and a stage. And my wife's like, you can't use the stage. You can't use the microphone. It's a global pandemic. So use your phone. So I get on my phone, and after 2 weeks of teaching, my teachings start going viral almost every other day. And I went from like 20,000 followers on Facebook to now I have 250,000 followers. But my goal was not to grow in followers. And I say this all the time, but I'm not making an audience. I'm making an army. Like there's a difference. Like if you're trying to make an audience, it's because you want them to serve you. But if you're trying to make an army, you're going to go conquer territory. So the thing that I think is messed up about these influencers is they're really trying to get a big group of people to serve them. And that's not leadership. Leadership is not how many people can I get to serve me. Leadership is I'm going to hold a ladder and I'm going to hold it with all my strength so as many people as possible can climb that ladder. And I'm at the bottom of the ladder holding it for you. So I got blue checkmark verified on Instagram. Everybody asks me how I did it. I tell them I don't know. Stop asking me. I got blue checkmark verified on TikTok and Facebook. And the only thing I'll tell you is that I try to bring value to people's life, and I love them when I'm tired. I teach and serve them when I'm exhausted, when I'm annoyed. I'm consistent because I call it the Mr. Rogers effect. I'll give this little nugget of truth is that, the Mr. Rogers effect is Mr. Rogers was not the most thrilling communicator. He was not a major league entertainer, but Mr. Rogers was on every day. And the reason why he was so consistent is because he loved people so well. And you never knew that Mr. Rogers was having a bad day. You never knew that Mr. Rogers was having an argument with his wife before the filming. All you knew is there's this guy that's letting me into his house, and he's going to show me how to feed his fish, and he's going to show me the little train ride. And he was so consistent. And I really believe that a lot of leaders are trying to be good, but they're not trying to be consistent. Stop trying to be good and start trying to be consistent. Be Mr. Rogers, okay? Don't try to be John Maxwell. Be Mr. Rogers, because I'm telling you, like for me, the more you are consistent in people's lives, and consistent is like in your attitude, in your passion, in your demeanor, and it's just a way of serving them with your life, and then they draw so much strength from it. They're just like, man, and now the funny thing is I could be having a bad day and people tune into me to make their day better. That's leadership, because they don't know I'm having a bad day. Because I'm literally saying, come on, you're going to break through. You're going to go to the next level. And as I'm saying that to people, guess what happens? The joy and the peace and the power that comes through me also comes to me. In other words, it's going to be real hard to serve water to everybody and die of thirst. You know what I mean? Like, it's like if it comes through you, it's got to come to you. It's like being a fat chef. If you cook food for everybody else, you're going to be able to break off a little piece for yourself. And so for me, I give everybody else joy. That brings me joy. I give everybody else strength and peace. That brings me strength and peace. And this is like a mysterious thing that you learn in the scriptures where it says the world of the generous gets larger and larger, and the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. It's a principle. So I'm introverted. So when I give, I don't want to give, but I'm being generous, because generosity is defined by giving what you don't want to give. So that's it. You're not generous if you give what you want to give, but when you give what you don't want to give, you're being generous. So for me, I just live in that place now. I just live in that place, and I've learned it. I'm getting better at it. I'm learning, but the pandemic taught it to me because I knew some of these things and then they clicked in. And so now I'm just kind of going for it.
See, that's what makes a person of great influence, though. You just described it to a T. It's not about being a superstar. It's not about, like you said, it's not for me. And that's really the crux of the difference of the two, I believe. Because pride and ego is on the one side, and humility and servanthood is on the other side, like servant leadership, which I think has over the years gotten somewhat of a bad name.
Yeah.
Gets lost in translation. But what you just described is really what servant leadership looks like.
Yeah.
It looks like everything that you just said. It looks like I'll do it even when I don't want to do it, even if I don't feel good, if I'm having a bad day. You're not going to know it because I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to continue to do what I do because I do it for a bigger reason than me.
That's it.
And it's got to be, well, everything that you mentioned is really for God. But when we say for God, it's really for other people. It's loving your neighbor as yourself. It's like, what do I want? Well, I'm going to give that to you. because that's just a lifestyle that I'm going to live. It's not a vocation. It's not something that I'm, aiming to become like an influencer, I mean, in my own experience, I had to get kind of struck down on lots of different occasions and, humbled. And I've always said, it's much better to humble yourself before the mighty hand of God. And if you don't, you'll just wind up being humiliated. And it's not nearly as much fun being humiliated. It is just laying your life down. So you kind of get accustomed to laying your life down. It's less painful. And, you just start to adopt that lifestyle about giving, and it's about loving other people, as you said, too. That's, of course, key. And again, if we're not loving the people that we're leading, then we're off track. Something's wrong with that equation, because it's really got to be about that. And so this idea of being a person of influence, one of the hallmarks of that is going to be that you're a lover. You love people, you care more about people than anything else. And you have trust that if I do this thing in the right order, everything else is going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
Like you said, you didn't even know that you were like the fastest growing church. It's like somebody checked the stats on that. Like maybe, somebody mentioned something. Let's go check that out.
Yeah.
It's like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? It's not about that at all.
Right. Well, and it's funny because when you have a hard time loving somebody, it's really because they're exposing something in you more than you're exposing something in them. Like people who are hard to love are revealing something deficient in us. And that's the thing that people don't understand. Like I used to lead people and say, well, there's people who are easy to love and people not easy to love. And now I've tried to make it so where nobody can tell who my real favorite is, because my preferences could be the enemy of my progress. And sometimes I have a preference towards someone, but my preference is an enemy to my progress. And the person that I don't have a preference for could actually be making me better if I let them. So now I've learned how to pay attention to the people that I don't like. It's like I love everybody, but I don't like everybody. But the ones I don't like are usually teaching me more about me, teaching me about my patience or lack thereof, teaching me about things from my past that they could be triggering that I need to get healing from. I've even had people where their name triggered me because I was hurt by someone else who had their name. So it was like, if I really was deep with it, I'm like, wait a second. I don't like them because of their name, because someone else with their name hurt me. So I'm the one who needs healing. They don't need a name change. So it's like, I think for me, even as a pastor, I've learned, the people that I have a hard time loving are making me better. Matter of fact, I tell this story all the time, and he's probably watching right now. One of the people that I could not stand, his name's Florian. I mean, I hated Florian. I hated the fact that I had to lead him. He annoyed me. This guy he was a contrarian, always had the opposite opinion of me, always had his own mind about him, very independent thinker. Some would call him a rebellious dude. Anyways, I had made up my mind that I was going to love this guy and serve this guy as his leader so well that he'll never know how I truly feel about him in that way. And did you know that guy ended up inviting me to Ukraine? I go to Ukraine. One of the first events I do there, over 2,000 people show up. The next day I do another event, over 2,000 people show up. Now I've been going back to Western Ukraine, this same region, for about a decade. I'm very well known there. When I show up, there's posters with my face all over this region. And I laugh because that region was opened to me by a guy I couldn't stand. But if I didn't make an attempt to love him, regardless of my preference towards him, a whole part of my destiny would have remained unlocked. It would have been locked up. So it was like, now the funny thing is, Florian's my guy. He's originally from Manhattan, so he's a tried and true New Yorker. But I love him, and I actually like him now. And I think I understand him more. He understands me. But at that time, when I first encountered him, it was almost like I felt like he was going to get in my way. But what I didn't realize is that he was going to unlock a whole country for me if I could learn how to love him well. So your destiny, here's the way I would preach it. Parts of your destiny are hidden in people you can't stand. They have the keys, and you'll never find those keys if you don't enter a place of relationship with the people that are hard to love. And so you can't build a big business off of a whole bunch of people that you love, or you have a preference toward them, because there's not that many people out there like that. Or you can't build a business off of everyone like you, because there's not a lot of people like that. So you're going to have to learn how to grow outside of yourself, you know? And for me, that's been this crazy, long, decades-long journey where I realized that the leader that failed me most was not a pastor, was not an abusive stepdad. The leader that failed me most in life was me. So the greatest enemy of my destiny is me. It's the enemy of me. And so I just went on this journey of like, I will conquer myself. I'll do it with crippling anxiety. I'll do it with fear. I'll do it when I'm tired. I'll do it. And literally, I just kept myself in that position where I was just like, I am going to make myself my greatest enemy. Therefore, I'm going to get the greatest victory. Just trying to drop some nuggets in this one for everybody. I'm just telling on myself. I'm telling myself I was the worst husband. I was the worst pastor. My first job, my first day on the job as a pastor, I fired somebody, which was the dumbest. He was actually he would have been my number one player, but I fired him because I was stupid. I was also full of wounds, father wounds. I was so broken. I'm in the very earliest stage. I think I've only known what I was doing for about 3 days now.
Ness, I'm gonna have you jump in here.
Yeah, it's so powerful what you said about, rather than blaming other people, where maybe that might have been the easy thing to do, is to look at the people that necessarily failed you in life, when you kind of switch your view and perspective and put it on yourself. And it really comes down to it being a you journey, as opposed to being dependent on others and what they've done in your life. That is so powerful, and definitely something I needed to hear, because I think it's definitely the easy place to be, to look at others as opposed to yourself. So that was a fire.
Yeah, I think one of those nuggets that Sandy just said here right now is the bomb. It's not a nugget, it's a bomb, like a boulder coming landing. You know, is that your preferences, the statement that you said about the preferences can limit you completely.
Yeah.
And derail you. You know, if you stick with those preferences and the people that you like and the things that you like to do, and, you know, what make you comfortable and all of that, you're done, you know, because life is just going to be full of a lot of stuff, mostly stuff that you don't want to do. You don't know how to do. You don't know how to approach. Somebody does it better than you. You know, you name it, it's always going to be there. And if you can't approach it the right way, then if it's a threat, for example, or just something that, you know, it just like you said, isn't your preference, and you shuffle it to the side, or you refuse to go there, then what are we actually doing? We're just shooting ourselves in the foot. Like, everything is there to be redeemed, essentially, and transformed. Everything. There's nothing. What Brennan Manning says in the Rabbi's Heartbeat, for example, is nothing in God. Nothing is wasted. Everything has meaning. There's nothing that doesn't have meaning. So if we cast off the things that we deem unimportant or uninteresting to us or whatever, then we're casting off some of the nuggets that you just threw out on the table here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and, you know, you've got to be willing to do the things that other people will not do to get a result they're not getting. You know, it's like you have to. So for me, that heart work, I remember being in marriage counseling for months and months. There would be times where I was convinced I was right. You know, have you ever just been so convinced? You're like, oh, I know I'm right. I'll just wait for everybody else to catch up. I know I'm right. You know, eventually Julie will tell me I'm right. And I remember getting like 3-4 sessions in, and then having that, then you have a little panic attack, because you're like, when you realize you're wrong, but then you're like, I've been so sure I was right that if I admit I'm wrong, I'm in too deep now. So I got to hold it down but then being willing to confront that and be like, okay, hold up, I'm wrong. And it's funny, my wife tells this story all the time. The thought of apologizing, you would literally see beads of sweat form on my forehead and like start to roll down. Just the thought of me saying, I'm sorry. I mean, it would like sweat, because I was so convinced I was right. My body would have a physical reaction to apologizing. And I had to be able to do that work. And so it's like, people want my marriage, but they don't want the marriage counseling sessions I did for a year and a half. You know, it's like they want to hit fastest growing church in America, but it's like, but do you want to obsessively work on everybody else's problems, or do you want to talk about your own problems? It's like, because you get to exchange, like, I don't get the luxury of talking about my own problems all day because I'm dealing with everybody else's problems. So you have something I don't. You get to complain. I don't get to complain. So it's like you're always exchanging, you know. You get to be drunk. I don't get to be drunk anymore because in order to have what I have, I had to sacrifice that awesome feeling of losing control and being drunk and nobody cares. So you're always you're giving up something good for something greater. And you get to choose what kind of comfort do you want? Do you want the comfort of mediocrity, or do you want the comfort that comes after success? But you can't have both. And so you just have to choose. And I think for me, like, I wallered in it. I laid down in it. I slept in it. My wife left me for a little while. We were actually separated way back in the day. She left me. Matter of fact, this was over a decade ago, so I can tell it as a story. It's a testimony now. But I came home totally drunk one night, and I was so drunk, I looked at my house and I said, wow, Julie cleaned really good today. When I sobered up, I realized she moved out. And so it's like, but that to me was like, I have to give up something good for something greater. She forced a choice. Like, you can be a real husband and a real father, or you can be a real deadbeat and a real alcoholic. Like, you're going to have to make an exchange. You can't have both. And what I love about business is that it's the great equalizer. You know what I mean? Like, what I love about building things, because I love to build, you know, we're building EIS, we're building V1 Church, we're building Operation Impact, is that, you know, you get to choose. Like, you get to choose, like, am I going to stay home and do nothing and watch Netflix, or am I going to build? Am I going to grow? And there's something liberating about that. And I think a lot of Christians are really consumed by this idea that God is ultimately in control of everything, which is true, but he also gave you a will. Why? Why do you have a will? And so, and why did he put Adam and Eve in this garden on planet Earth and say, go ahead, I gave you dominion? And so it's like, for me, I think the beautiful thing that we're all learning together is, how is God going to use my will in conjunction with his will to do amazing things where you're co-creating with him? And I think that, like you said, there's this redemption where I'm creating this beautiful story with Julie. We have history now. We've been through it. I know she really loves me, because when I have everything and when I have nothing, she honored that covenantal vow. You know, we're making this story with V1 Church about how we're not in the Bible Belt. You know, we're not in Texas where everybody's a Christian. We're in New York where people cuss instead of saying amen to my sermons. But we hit fastest growing church there. So there's this beautiful story unfolding. And I think I want to encourage everybody who's watching right now, and I know we're going to take some questions, is, you know, here's the thing. God gave you the pen. He gave you the paper. Now write the story. Write it with him, change it, you know, put a plot twist in there. Everybody thinks that you're lethargic, that you're lazy. Everybody thinks you're a complainer, you're a whiner. Put a plot twist in there. It's time for a new chapter, you know? And I just feel like, for me, what I've been so grateful for is the definition of grace is getting something you don't deserve. So I woke up the next day and God's like, my grace is new today. You didn't deserve this. Turn the page and start writing. Because you're going to redefine the previous chapters by what you write now, you know, and that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm excited for tomorrow. And it's taken a long time for me to be able to say that, you know. So.
Well, let's get some questions going, guys, out there. We have a good sized audience. So
there was one earlier on that I just had to scroll up to, but just 1 second. Do you want the comfort of mediocrity or the comfort of success? That I have notes. This is like, everyone hear that again. There was I can't find the exact comment, but I remember it was something about, what do you believe in current times is the biggest threat to mental health?
Oh, that is such a great question. The biggest threat to mental health is isolation. And when you are scrolling through your phone This is not company. This is not community. This might be an extension of community, but this is not community. And so like isolation is when you receive just enough interactions with humans on your phone to stay isolated, to stay alone. And so you've got to give yourself to community. You have to give yourself to relationship. And, all of my healing has been found through relationship. It's like, and there's this lie that it's in you already. Oh, you just have to find it. It's somewhere in you. I can just tell you it's not. Like it's got what, and I'm going to say this over and over again. I believe that your healing, the answers for your life, it's hidden in somebody else. And you have to come into a relationship with them to receive it. And God is so cruel to do that to an introvert. He's so cruel to do that to somebody who's been wounded by people, but that's how he does it. And so, your next level is hidden in a person, and so even when you read a book, what's the benefit of the book? You're just having a monologue with somebody. And so I'd say the biggest threat to mental health is isolation. And it's you believing that scrolling through your phone is a solution for isolation. It's not. You need more than that.
I would add to that, that maybe a sister or a brother to isolation is disqualification.
Yeah, that's so good.
Because isolation will spawn disqualification real quick, because you're into your own head. You're into, I can't do this. I can't be a part of that, all of that stuff. And it just keeps working on you, which is such a big part of like what we teach so much is taking your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions captive. As a man believes in his heart, so he is. When you isolate yourself, you're also a sitting duck for the enemy.
Yeah.
Because he wants to use that isolation so you get into your own head and he can, chuck those fiery darts at you and just start the fires in your brain, which, is, oh yeah, see, I can't do that. Well, if I do that, this is going to happen, projection. We're always projecting the worst, depending on temperament and everything else as well, of course,
Yeah.
But I know for me, thinking back, that was one of my greatest nemesis was my own thought life. I was my biggest, worst enemy,
Wow.
And I would isolate myself because I felt disqualified and that I was the odd man out, that I couldn't do it. And that no matter how hard I tried, because that was my history, that's what I believed is I never was able to do it. Why should I be able to do it now?
Mm.
So I would just intentionally, I didn't want to be rejected. I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to look at it like any of those things.
That is so good.
Like you started out our time together talking about like, do it anyway.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
you do it anyway.
qualification also then takes away from what you were talking about, Pastor Mike, about being the first and the blessing and being a pioneer. That like you can be your worst enemy and stop yourself from doing that. And I know I've experienced that in my own life where it's like you stop yourself from maybe doing all the things that you're called to do or meant to do, whatever it might be. But someone had a question to add onto that. It reads, what do you do when you're wounded and you try to stop isolating and get wounded more? How do we navigate that?
I do think that sometimes rejection is God's protection. And so you shouldn't be in relationship with everybody. Sometimes when people are removed from your life, it's like, you just got to let them go. You got to be careful about like who you give yourself to. What I've realized is that pain will cause you to keep your circles the same. So like, for example, if you're raised in poverty, you may only feel comfortable around poor people. Well, the thing is, none of them have information to unlock your financial future, because if they did, they would do it for themselves. So trust people when they show you what they believe and what they know with their life. So it's like your pain will keep your circles the same. And so a lot of times when you're like, well, I'm wounded and then I gave myself to people and I got wounded more, it's because you dated to the level of your self-esteem. It's because you created friendships to the level of your self-esteem. And so you have to be careful that if you're wounded, you're actually looking at that and saying, man, I'm going to challenge myself to make relationships and friendships with people that challenge me and that maybe I don't identify with, that are not comfortable to me. And for me, it's funny. I was just thinking about that the other day. When you're hanging out, sometimes I get in these circles where people are wearing watches that are somebody else's annual income. But that's so good for my soul because they're they're showing me that they have information that has unlocked these levels for them. And so if I was always just hanging out with people that are like, oh yeah, I was raised in the trailer park too. It's like sometimes like you've got to leave a circle to save your previous circle. You know, it's like you got to leave a circle to then turn back and be like, hey guys, I figured it out. Whoever wants to come up with me, let's come up. But sometimes you have to leave your circle to save your existing circle. And for me, it's like the crazy thing is I'm actually launching a church in Northwest Indiana right now. There was over 300 people there. That's where I was born and raised. So now I come back from New York and I'm like Frodo from Lord of the Rings. I'm like, I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen some crazy stuff. And I feel like I have something to offer my region again. And so you leave your circle temporarily to save it. And God's really been dealing with me in that way.
Yeah, it's funny because it kind of alludes to, and you mentioned this earlier too, about, you know, if you're an alcoholic and you're a drinker, you're a partier, or this and that, you know, one of the phrases in old AA lingo is people, places, and things. You know, like changing those things is like, yeah. if you want to maintain circles that are destructive, they're going to keep you in the circle. You know, you have to leave that circle. So I would totally agree with you to maintain the circle that I have and create new circles around that circle, you know, that will support the forward movement that we're really intended to move into. Because we were never intended to get stuck. See, and to me, that alludes on another leg over here to cycling. You know, because people get caught in so many different cycles because they're in the same circle and they don't know how to get out of that. There's so many things that you just said. I could just kind of jump right in there and
come on,
scream around and throw stuff in. Like, you know, our healing is in our pain. You know, if we don't go into the pain and we don't face the pain and we don't go in there and find out like what it's about, the pain is always stalking us and it's always vying to disqualify us. Yeah. Like all these pieces, they all play against us together. And if we don't, you know, stand back and say, wait a minute, like what's going on here? Am I cycling? Am I stuck in a circle? You know, codependency is another label for that too, especially in relationships. It's one of the things that keeps us in circles, and we can never break loose because we feel a false sense of obligation or something, you know, going around in there. And like, so all these peripheral pieces, I think that's where like talking about like EIS and the work that we do there is to help people to sort through these things. Because sometimes, I mean, I know for me that it took several years to kind of wade through all of these pieces. Yeah. Like even taking my thoughts captive, it has all of these tentacles to it. And all of the codependency and the brokenness from my growing up and my mother being an alcoholic and my dad not knowing how to handle it and just all the dysfunction of all of that. And then the same dysfunction that I carried over into my relationships, that established my circle, which was really a circle of destruction. Yeah. You know, and discerning that and being able to move forward, you know, that's what we have to help people to do, to understand like, hey, wait a minute, you have all these things, but none of it is a disqualification. Yeah. And so many times it just goes automatically to that place. It's, you know, somebody just put up layers and layers. Absolutely. And we can peel those layers back and we can discover the genuine us, you know. And I always tell people, like, if you want to customize your life, just find out who you are. Yeah. Just become the genuine you, because you have the most unique thing that you can bring to the table of the world around you, is the uniqueness of who you are, your giftings, you know, your calling, your why, your purpose, your everything. But why do we disqualify that so quickly? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you would have done that, Mike, like you wouldn't be sitting here talking to me.
And it takes a long time I think it takes a long time to figure out who you are and what you are. And people, that's a journey. And who are you without other people's influence? And for me, I just continue to go on that journey. And I would encourage everybody who can hear me to go on that journey, who you are. And it's just an amazing thing. And it evolves over time. But yeah, you're right. There's just so many layers to this. I love these comments, by the way. Everybody's going crazy in the comments.
This is gonna have the most shares ever. I love seeing everyone tagging the V1 fam. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're representing from all over the world right now. It's so
They're
cool.
bringing it.
I don't even know how they found this. I posted the link up, but they're ninjas like that. They're always on it.
So, Mike, we're going to have to kind of wrap things up, but how can people tap into your stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I mean, I've got a website, breakthroughsteaching.com. I know a lot of people are always just like, do you have teachings? Do you have, Zoom settings and things where we can ask you questions and all that? So just based on demand, I put together breakthroughsteaching.com. And I'd love for you guys to go check out that site and maybe see if it's something that you'd want to do. But other than that, I mean, go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I just broke 11,000 subscribers, so I've been working on that. But I do a lot of live streams there. And then obviously on Facebook, you guys can find me on Facebook, Instagram too.
Is V1, are the services still online on
yeah.
Sunday?
Yeah, so we broadcast the services through my pages as well as V1's pages. So 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. You guys can check them out there. And we've got a rule, though. The rule is no perfect people are allowed. And that's how I get in every Sunday. So yeah, between that and then Monday through Friday, all the broadcasting and the videos and stuff, I run the gamut. Any topic is fair game for me because, I just want to help people. So check it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike. This was awesome. Like Vanessa said earlier, we're going to do a part 2 and a part 3 of this one for sure.
Yeah, this was so much fun. Thanks for having me. Shout out all the V1 fam, the live at lunch fam, the subscribers, everybody in the comments. I see a lot of familiar names. Thanks for representing tonight so strong.
And you can go and check this this broadcast out right after the broadcast, actually on Facebook and YouTube. If you just go, I guess it's EIS. What is it, Ness? On
Good question.
EIS Bill Hoffman, I think for Facebook.
Mm-hmm. EIS Bill Hoffman, and then it's EIS Solutions on YouTube.
Okay, yeah, and that'll be posted right after this, so you can share it with friends. And then shameless plug for this awesome book called The Process.
Yes.
Make sure you check this one out. It's going to talk a lot about the stuff we talked about today and how to get involved in a process in your own life that navigates you forward and keeps you moving forward for the rest of your life. And then the book of the week.
That book is a treasure, The Process. It's on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Come
and
on,
it's
guys.
Kindle, it's Kindle, and it's also audiobook. Yeah.
Yeah. Bill Hoffman's book, The Process, is a game changer. It's a game changer. You got to get it. If you don't own it, you need it. I just had to back you up on that. I don't endorse a lot of books. If you notice, I don't really endorse a lot of books. I'm very selective, but that book is amazing. Matter of fact, you should be on my broadcast at least once. I don't know if I would be so lucky, but I think it'd be a great thing.
Have a little crossover. I love that.
I'm ready, Mike.
Awesome.
Okay, now for the book of the week. Are you ready for this one? You're going to love the name of this one. The Importance of Being Foolish by Brennan Manning.
So good.
And I know Mike has read this.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of smacks right in the face of this idea, like how to be such a great influencer.
Yeah.
The Importance of Being Foolish is awesome. You're just so going to appreciate this book. So, yep. And next week we have another awesome guest. She is a specialist in basically childhood sexual abuse. She's worked with a lot of people that we work with at EIS. She's just been such a great support system, and she's going to be on sharing with us, and we have several testimonies along with that. So we're looking forward to that too. And then Mike, again, we're looking forward to another round 2 and a round 3 as soon as you can come back.
I'm in. Count me in. Let's do it. If Nessa's there, I'm there.
We're besties now.
All right. Well, love you guys so much, and we'll see everybody next week. And for now, Ness, what is it?
EIS out.
Love you guys.
Bye.